Today I am working on Rolife's Flowery Sweets and Tea miniature wooden set. The quality case that this set comes in is actually really nice. It's packaged really well. The box is just adorable and really great quality. I ended up saving the box because I just thought it was so cute. I don't know what I'm going to use it for, but I still have it. Here I am looking at the directions, kind of. I also kind of did not read the directions and just decided I know better than this. I'm not going to follow their directions of painting the items before cutting them apart and assembling them. I don't know why I'm like this, because then I got to the point later where I had to paint them after I assembled them and realized there was a reason they wanted you to paint them before assembling them. Because it's really difficult to paint these tiny little things that are already assembled and not get paint on certain parts. I don't know why I'm like this. I just am. I kind of will learn my lesson going forward, but probably not really. But I'm in it. And here I am taking apart the first couple pieces. It was at this point I realized, oh, you actually need an X-Acto knife to cut these pieces apart, and you can't just kind of break them free of the mold because they will tear off uneven and have like these shards of wood hanging out. That's probably because I didn't read the directions. Again, don't be like me, follow the directions, but I got there eventually. One of the most challenging things about putting together this kit was finding the correct pieces they were referencing in the directions. The pieces aren't labeled clearly, and so you just have to like line it up on this other cheat sheet that they give you and then compare that to the direction sheet. And sometimes multiple pieces look like they might be the piece they're referencing. So there was just long periods of time where I was just trying to find the correct wooden piece they were talking about. And that's one thing I'm wondering if future sets will make a little bit more clear, or have kind of like all the pieces you need to work on for one item on one sheet of wood. And I'm sure they do this to save wood by making it take up, as much space of the wood so there's less waste, which is a good thing, but it does make it really challenging to find all the right pieces for the one item you're assembling. Alright, so I finally found the pieces I was looking for, which were in a separate bag of already mostly cut pieces of fencing, which is a good place to start, but actually made it harder for me to find because I thought it was on one of the wooden sheets. So here I am getting out my cutting board and getting the little pieces, because you do have to still cut them in half, and then I start splitting them in half. taking each of the posts and I am sanding down the bottoms of them so they just have a nice smooth finish. My cat decided to join in on the fun and supervise. He's a pretty good supervisor, and since there were no sharp tools out at this part, it's a good part for your cat to join in. Next, I start laying out each of the fence posts individually just so it'll be a little easier to glue on the perpendicular posts. This seems like such a simple thing to do, but I feel like it took me an eternity because I laid them out and then I'm like, wait, they're not perfectly straight. I gotta lay them out again. I gotta bring them a little closer together. I gotta make them more straight. It was just surprising how long some of these tasks took. I think this is something you really gotta embrace and be like, I'm gonna be spending an eternity making this tiny fence and I'm gonna enjoy every second of it. And here I am continuing to make those fence posts straight. I started using a stick to kind of evenly space between them, and that was really helpful. Because these pieces are so small, my hands sometimes are a little shaky and it's hard to get things so perfectly straight or just right where I want them. So try experimenting with that using different tools or kind of a different way of assembling things and see what works for you. We have finally made it to the gluing stage. There was something wrong with my glue bottle. I thought I just was not assembling it correctly, but when I started my second kit, I realized that there was just something wrong with it, and so it was broken. It was not going to work coming out the nozzle, so I had to use these tiny little, they're like makeup sample brushes that I actually got for doing some cookie decorating a few years back, and I used that to apply the glue. I kind of liked it because it just felt like you could get kind of a very precise location of where you're putting the glue. The only thing is this glue does dry very quickly, and so the applicator I was using would get very gummy and I would have to throw it away. It also was a little bit hard to control because the glue is so thick, the amount I'm putting on the applicator. But I think it worked pretty well overall, especially make and do with this situation that I wasn't expecting. And it will be interesting to adjust to using the regular applicator in my next kit. The next item I am assembling, I believe it's called a terrace, like that thing that kind of hangs over a door. You can put like cloth on it to keep the rain off. It was already made of the cut pieces of wood that was also in the bag, and it was the next thing to assemble, and so I started there. This was probably the easiest item to assemble in the whole package because it was a very simple, straightforward glue the pieces together. I didn't have to cut, didn't have to sand or anything. Now we're getting to the good stuff. So I'm cutting out 2 of the wooden chairs that sit in front of the building here. And so this is where I have to start cutting each wooden piece out with a knife and then sanding each of these pieces and gluing them together. Here you can see I had to get another piece of the wooden sheets to find the other pieces to the chairs. These wooden slats are actually the backs of the chairs. It kind of makes it like a treasure hunt to find the right pieces. What's confusing to me is the directions say that you're supposed to cut all the pieces out, sand them, and paint them. But I don't know how you would be able to find the right pieces that go together after that, because there's a booklet that tells you which pieces go to which items, but they tell you that like based on where they are in the wooden pages. So once you take them out, you won't know what pieces to find. And just like that, 2 chairs have been assembled. And the last piece I assembled today was a counter that goes inside of the building. So here I am cutting out the pieces, and then I will work on assembling it. one thing that I was just continuously amazed by while I was putting the set together was the level of detail involved. So this counter actually goes inside of the building, which you can only see through the windows, but they didn't just make it a plain counter. They actually put like crown molding and all this wooden detail that you'll see me glue on here soon on the counter, and then also cover the counter with different papers. Just really, really incredible detail. I mean, once I had this whole thing assembled, you really can't even see a lot of this. Some of this molding goes on the inner part of the counter, which you can't see at all from the window. But it's just really incredible, really still kind of cool how much thought and detail they put into these pieces. Here I am cutting the paper details that are going to be glued on top of this counter. Each of the papers for this entire set are just so incredibly detailed, just the tiniest writing, the tiniest prints on it. Really just elevated the set to another level of detail and thought put into every little piece. I will say some of the paper pieces are so tiny. It was really hard to cut with my scissors because when you cut like something small, the scissors kind of like jump a little bit right at the end. So when you're cutting these really tiny detailed things, it was challenging. So some of these items I'd probably even cut using an X-Acto knife just to make it all the more perfect. And here are the 4 pieces that I created today. I think these sets are incredible. The detail is just next level, but they are not for the faint of heart. To complete this entire set took me about 24 hours. Just these 4 little pieces alone took me about an hour and a half. So if this is something that you really want to dive into and you really like, then I say give it a try, because the level of detail, the thought that really goes into this craft is really awesome.